Hi, everybody, and welcome on the Good Data Morning Show. My name is George,
And I am Deanna.
and as you're coming in, please feel free to say hello and let us know where you are coming from. It's always great to see the diversity of our audience. Today, we have an amazing show for you, as you would expect. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is data governance, and not just any data governance, but non-invasive data governance. So if you're going to enjoy the show, please click on the like button. We would really appreciate it. And jump in with your comments, your feedback, maybe draw from your experience. If you like to share anything that will be valuable to everybody else. And yeah, just put in your questions, your comments. They're always, always welcome. And now let's welcome our guest, Bob Seiner. Hi, Bob.
Welcome,
Hi,
Bob.
everybody.
Welcome on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I would like to introduce Bob. I have the pleasure to. Bob is the publisher of Data Administration Newsletter, tdan.com, an award-winning electronic publication that focuses on sharing information about data, information, content, and knowledge management disciplines. It was called a bookmark on the browser of everyone that wants to or needs to be in touch with the latest and greatest information about the data management industry. Bob was recognized by DAMA International for his lifetime contribution to the information resource management profession, and tdan.com is at the heart of that influence. Bob is a regular speaker at major data and metadata management, business intelligence, and knowledge management related conferences and user group meetings across the US. He is also president and principal consultant of KIK Consulting and Educational Services. KIK stands for Knowledge is King, which I absolutely love. KIK Consulting focuses on consultative mentoring. It's a blend of consulting and educational services to enable companies to improve and gain value from how they manage their data and information resources. KIK offers 2-day courses on how to build and implement data stewardship programs and metadata programs. So all this information is to be found on kikconsulting.com. Bob specializes, among others, in data governance and data stewardship, metadata management solutions, and in non-invasive data governance, which he's trademarked and which is also our topic for today. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. Well, I was wondering if we were going to have time left to talk after all those things that you were sharing with people about me, but thank you very much.
Hey, we do have people joining us from Belgium and from rainy Vancouver. Yes, it is raining here, unfortunately. And I know, Bob, you were, rubbing it in a little bit because you have beautiful weather.
Well,
And
it's cold. It's less than 50 degrees, but it's nice here today. It's not raining yet.
hi, from New York, New Jersey. And we have people from Toronto. Hello, Subjit. And hi, Andrew. Very nice to see you. And Andrew is from England. So we really have people from all over the world as usual. And, as we mentioned, Bob, you're really an expert in so many fields, but one of the most notable ones, it's data governance. And why don't we just start with that? Why don't we start with the basics? What does data governance mean to you?
Okay, well, I have a definition of data governance. I think everybody has their definition of data governance, and my definition has some teeth behind it. And a lot of my clients will temper my definition a little bit because they say it's worded too strongly. But the truth is that my definition makes a lot of sense. So the definition I use is the data governance is the execution and enforcement of authority over the management of data and data-related assets. So at the end of the day, no matter what approach you take to data governance, whether you take kind of the top-down command and control or kind of the traditional approach of field of dreams, if you build it, they will come, or you take a non-invasive approach, no matter what approach you take, your data governance is really only worth its weight in salt if it is if you can execute and enforce authority. So some people look at non-invasive and say, well, that sounds like a do-nothing approach. No, that's not true. It's actually a do-everything approach, because at the end of the day, the idea is to be able to execute and enforce authority, but then also to formalize accountability for the management of data. So it's I like to word it very strongly. I think that other definitions are too soft. So that's just the way that I go about that, defining it.
Right.
No, I think that's a great definition for sure. Well, what's funny a little bit about data governance and the fact that there are so many definitions, which in a way it's a bit ironic, right? Because that's one of the things that data governance is trying to solve, and that's to really bring those definitions out and create some consistency as well in that data, and of course business terminologies and whatnot.
I wanted to ask, I wanted to say first that when I hear non-invasive, I think of something very positive and helpful, supportive. And I wanted to ask, what is non-invasive data governance? And I know that on your beautiful website, which you've changed now in layout, and it looks very, very nice. And I invite everyone to visit kikconsulting.com. You talk on the website about 3 approaches to data governance and implementing data governance. So if you can touch on those 2 and also add definition or your definition of non-invasive data governance.
Sure. So the idea of non-invasive data governance is that there's already governance that's taking place within your organization. I mean, if your company has been or organization has been around for years, or even if you're just getting started, there has to be some level of governance that's taking place, or you wouldn't even be able to get started. So the idea of non-invasive data governance is to look to see what levels of responsibility, what levels of accountability already exist, and leverage those first. And, the idea of being non-invasive in the approach is that, there's already people who are stewards of the data. They don't call themselves stewards of the data, but basically, by my definition, if you have a relationship to the data, if you define or you produce or you use data as part of your job, and you're being held accountable for how you define, produce, or use it, you're a data steward. So I've been known to say everybody in the organization is a data steward, and that the organizations need to get over that fact. Otherwise you can select a handful or dozens or hundreds of people to be data stewards, but you're not going to talk to a group of people who need to protect sensitive data and say, okay, you folks on the left-hand side, I don't know which, I think the camera is inverting, what's the left-hand side, but you folks on one side of the room, you need to protect that sensitive data, but you folks on the right side of the room who also use that data, you don't have to protect it. That doesn't work that way. So I say that if you define or produce or use data, and you're being held accountable for how you do any of those things, you're a data steward. So the first idea, or one of the first concepts of non-invasive data governance, is we're not going to assign people into roles. At least most of the time, we're not going to assign people. We're going to recognize them, and that's where the positive connotation comes in, Diana. That I think there's a positive nature to being recognized for something. So if you are a subject matter expert or a data domain steward or a subject area data steward who has the knowledge about a specific subject area, we're going to recognize you for that. We're not going to hand you all these additional things to do. We're going to call out the fact that, if you need information, you're going to go to Diana because she's the one that has that knowledge. And, at least most of the time, we can recognize people into their roles and responsibilities rather than assigning them. I hate the word assign because immediately it sounds like it's over and above what you're presently doing. And people push back. Well, how can I be assigned to do this? I already am busy 120% of the time. Are you going to add to that? Well, you can't really add to that because people will become overwhelmed. And
Bob, for those people, sorry to interrupt, for the people that you want to reach out to, how do you know that it's those people that you have to reach out to? Do you put some sort of an artifact together to record all this information, and that, hey, you do need to reach out to Diana for this and that, or what is your best
It's very
practice in there?
important to publish that information internally within your organization. And there's a lot of powerful data cataloging tools and data governance tools that give you the ability to be able to link who the person is that has the knowledge. Now, they might not be the authority, or they might not have the authority to be able to make a decision. But, the funny thing, I just want to add to one thing that I was saying before. When you're doing a master data management initiative within your organization, or a data analytics initiative within your organization, you're going to get the knowledgeable people involved. If you don't, who are you going to get involved? You're not going to get the less knowledgeable people. You're going to try to find those people that are impacted the most. So you can just naturally start to recognize who some of these people are and record that. So say, oh, when I have a question about location data, I'm going to go to this person, or I usually go to this person, but they always tell me, well, you talk to this person and then talk to this person, and eventually you'll make it to the person that you need to. So yes, George, I think it's a great idea to document that information and to promote it and let people know who's recognized as being the subject matter experts. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And it also reinforces that recognition, I think, that you mentioned.
It really does.
It just makes it a bit more visible for everybody else to understand, hey, you go for this type of expertise over to this person. And I think they also feel validated, and people in general, they like the idea of sharing. I like to believe.
Well, and so I'm just going to show my book, okay, because you said I could. Okay, the
Yes,
book
please.
on non-invasive data governance. But the reason why I'm sharing it with you is that I talk about a specific tool in the book, and I call it a common data matrix. And it is a way to record exactly the information, George, that you just talked about. It is a way to say, okay, we've got customer data, and we've got it broken into different sub-subject areas of customer data. And for this specific sub-subject area, it can be that data about that can be found in these systems. And these are the people in IT that you should go to who know about these systems. But these are the people in the rest of the organization who get their data get that specific type of data from that specific source. So it really helps to do that inventory of what data you have, where it resides, who's responsible for it. And it really becomes, I would tell you that I get at least a dozen inquiries a month from people who say, can you send me a copy of the common data matrix? So for any of you out there in good data morning world, if you're interested in receiving a copy of it, I'll be glad to send it to you, because it really answers those questions, George, that you just outlined. And it also helps you in other ways too. Well, first of all, one of the things that drives management crazy is when they ask a question to multiple people and they get a different answer depending on who they ask. Well, the reason that they're getting a different answer is because people are going to different places to get the data. Their understanding of the data, even in the same place, it could be different. And the other thing is that if you're going to make a change to this type of data in this specific system, you now know who in the organization is touching that data. And so it makes the impact analysis part of it, easier to be able to handle within an organization. So it's a very nicest thing about the tool is it costs that much to implement. It costs your time, but that's pretty much it.
So let's talk about those levels really quickly. And by the way, again, I do recommend anybody to go and buy this book, Non-Invasive Data Governance, The Path of Least Resistance and Greatest Success. And Bob in here doesn't just talk about what is non-invasive data governance, but also how you could implement it in your own organization, or maybe in your own life even. Who knows? Everybody needs data governance, I feel.
Everybody needs it, yes.
But back to those levels, really, you're describing the fact that it starts, from the top down. If we were to choose an order, starts with the executive, then we have the the strategic, tactical, operational, and then the support level. And across all these levels, you have the 6 components, I believe. Would you mind to giving us a bit bit of an intro about all of that.
Certainly. So since the book was written, I have also developed a data governance framework. And it's a simple, if you're familiar with things like the Zachman framework, it has a bunch of rows, has a bunch of columns. And the columns are the core components of data governance. And those are data, roles, process, communications, technology, and metrics. Those are what I consider to be the core components of a data governance program. Now, the rows of the framework are exactly what you just stated: executive, strategic, tactical, operational, and support. And so if you just take the roles column, for example, well, what do we call the role of the executives associated with a governance program? That could be your executive staff, your management group, your steering committee. But then at the strategic level, a lot of organizations have a data governance council. And at a tactical level, they have those subject matter experts, domain stewards. At the operational, they've got just the operational data stewards. And then at the support level, there's typically the person that runs the program. That's the administrator or the office of data governance. There are the working teams of people that are brought together for a specific initiative. And then there's also the partners of data governance, and that could be IT, it could be InfoSec, it could be HR, corporate communications, audit, legal, HR. Any of those they're like partners. They're already doing things that we can leverage, that we can take advantage of, that we're not changing their role. We're just calling out in this model that they are supporting functions to data governance. I mean, the folks in corporate communications are much better versed at getting the right messaging out to the organization than us folks in data governance. So why not leverage them? Why not leverage HR if your organization needs to put data governance or data stewardship responsibilities into your job description? So that's simple framework. And again, I share that through tdan.com as well, but people can certainly request copies of the framework because I have a white paper that describes that. But I mean, it's just a simplified way of viewing it, and those core components are key. I mean, we need to know what data the executives care about. We need to know what data the strategic people, and we need to know what metrics are going to be ingestible by the executive level and each level. So if you go and you fill out that framework, it really helps you to develop the core terminology and the core components of your program.
And there you go, Michael. You just go to tdan.com and just get a copy from there. Or, I do encourage everybody here to follow Bob Seiner as well on LinkedIn, as he's posting things, a few times a week. So there's a lot of details there. I'm sure Bob could also send you a copy too. And Chandra, yes, I think we could all use the matrix template any day of the week for sure. So
I have another question.
Yes,
or
please.
do you want to go? Okay. So I think that we learn best by examples, and this is what we remember most. So I wanted to ask you, Bob, if you have an example of your client where this approach of the non-invasive data governance made a huge difference.
Well, I have many of them that will do that, but I'll pull out one client specifically that actually called it information governance rather than data governance, because they had already started down the path of records management, and some auditors or examiners told them, wrote them up, gave them a bad review in terms of how they are going about protecting sensitive information. And protecting sensitive information is top of mind for most people. So what they did was first they inventoried what data they had, and they categorized it and classified it. And then they went and we met with each of the groups to see who was defining that data, who was producing that data, who was using that data. And we formalized their responsibility for doing that, rather than coming at them and saying, this is brand new to you. You need to start doing this. Is that on my side or your side?
I think that's on my side.
Is it? Okay. Well, and so in this organization, these people were so busy that if you came to them and you asked them to do additional things, there was going to be pushback.
Mm-hmm.
But since we could easily acknowledge the fact that they were using sensitive data from these specific sources, we provided them the job aids, the assistance, the knowledge that they needed to know about how they need to clean their desk up at the end of the day, how they need to encrypt files when they send them, how they need to destroy data that was sensitive, that if you left it sitting around, or I'll give another example. When, if you're printing sensitive information, and this was financial information, that you can't just send it to the printer and leave it sitting on the printer until you're ready to go over and pick it up, because that's a risk. That data could be picked up by anybody, and they could have access to data that they shouldn't have. So we put protections on that, where if somebody prints something that is categorized as being sensitive, it didn't actually print on the printer until that person went over to the printer and entered in their code. So that way, where in the evenings there had been piles of sensitive data sitting around the office, they solved that problem. But they didn't, it wasn't invasive. It didn't change their job. What we did was we educated them to make sure that they understood the role that they play in the protection of sensitive information. That's one example. And there's so many of organizations that have said, this is the only way this will really work for us. I hear from people often that, they've never heard data governance described this way before. And it really is an alternative approach to that command and control approach, or that approach where I talked about this a little bit earlier, where, if you've seen the movie Field of Dreams, and they build the baseball field, and the idea is that if you build it, they will come, or he will come. Somebody will come back from the olden days and use the ball field. Well, we can build our data governance programs and hope that people gravitate toward them. Yeah. That's the traditional approach. That's what a lot of organizations do. Yeah. And that gravitation towards the approach doesn't necessarily happen. But if we start with the premise of, you're already doing this, we're going to help you to do it better, to do it in a more structured, more formalized way. People are very willing to sit forward in their chairs and listen to what you have to say. And then if you can share with them that it's not a do-nothing approach, it's actually an address everybody approach, it doesn't make it easy. It doesn't make it like you can snap your fingers and all of a sudden have a governance program. It still takes work, but people are much more accepting to that idea of, you're already doing this, we're going to help you to do it in the way that, has to be auditable when the examiners come in and look at how we're managing our data.
And Chris is asking here, do you think this would, encourage that democratization of data as well, or have it somewhat related to it?
I'll be honest with you. I don't really have a definition for the democratization of data. So my understanding may be a little bit different. I don't know if there's one that we can go with. But I mean, the idea is that everybody has responsibility. And if you think of that as being, just like in the United States, what we've just gone through with the election is everybody has a vote. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we still need to be able to execute and enforce authority. So we just can't have the marketing and the sales and the engineering parts of the organization knock heads and go their merry way without making a decision. We're not going to improve things. So there needs to be a level of control. There needs to be a level of escalation, and decision-making has to be a part of data governance, because otherwise people will continue to act on their own, and things won't get any better, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Now, I do have to put this question up just because we cannot not have you on and have Scott ask, what is your definition of a cheeseburger? Which I know I reference a lot, your definition of this. And as a LinkedIn user here, it says it's a burger with cheese. Well, no, it's not. I mean, it is a burger with cheese, but that's not how you should be defining it for
Well,
sure.
I think the context of it is that so many of us who were data modelers or who created data dictionaries or glossaries of terms, a student account number is not an account number for a student. You're using the same words that you are trying to define in the definition. So when I talk about, and I talk about it a lot, cheeseburger definitions, what is a burger? A cheeseburger? It is a burger with cheese. Well, yeah, it is. But, if you really want the business areas to understand what a customer volatility index is, you don't just say it's an index of customer volatility. You have to describe in more details as to what it is. So I make fun of the idea of a cheeseburger. There we go. There's a great definition. It's although then you could take that definition and say, well, define for me what a hunk of meat is. So, I just don't like, I just think that we as data practitioners, and when I said to formalize accountability for the definition, production, and usage of data, the definition of data needs to make certain that the people who are defining the data aren't providing cheeseburger definitions. They're providing definitions that are more meaningful to the business. And yes, it might take a little bit more time to do that, but it's not going to change your day. I mean, you can do better than saying that a cheeseburger is a burger with cheese. You can do better than saying a customer account number is an account number for a customer. Be more descriptive. Your clients, your business areas and clients internally will be very happy, and they will gain much benefit from it.
And yes, Scott is on a roll here. Yes.
Thanks, Scott.
Governance that is
Yes,
non-invasive.
I hope I provided a better answer than that when you asked me what non-invasive data governance is. It really focuses on the idea that there's existing levels of governance that are taking place at your organization. Look for those. Take advantage of those. Leverage those before you go and redefine everything from scratch.
Yeah.
And
so Bob,
you can find more information here.
Absolutely. Please go and book your copy today. It's something that everybody, any data professional, needs to have it on their bookshelf for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to mention I see some amazing questions here, and just because we do not have time to put all of them up, I would highly encourage that you contact Bob and ask these questions. I'm sure he will be more than happy to give you the insights.
Absolutely. Though I do wonder if we have time for this one from Donabelle. What strategies would you recommend if even after recognizing the responsibilities, there's pushback that it's not part of their responsibilities?
Well, so sometimes, and this is a little bit more invasive than non-invasive, it needs to be written into their job description. So we know for a fact that people that use data that is sensitive, that is classified a particular way, they all need to protect that data. It's not, that's a kind of an easy one. But if somebody is, the most difficulty actually takes place at the tactical level, where we're looking to recognize people in the organization that have responsibility for that data across the organization. I mean, you might have somebody who knows customer within a certain product line and knows customer in another product line. Well, we're never going to get to a consistent definition if we cannot find somebody who says, okay, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. We want to come up with a single definition. So, you know what? You're going to expect some pushback. The idea is to present it to them logically, have a well thought out approach, get your senior leadership or your management to understand that we need to do this in order to get people to do what is expected of them. So to the person that asked that question, Stephanie, I think it was, feel free to reach out if you're having specific problems in that area, and I'll be glad to talk to you about that. There's not an easy kind of one size fits all answer, because they don't always have to like what they're being told to do. But if it's important enough to the organization, there are alternative ways of getting them to do what is expected of them.
And Jessica here is asking, really, are there any consequences if they don't get it right? And I assume so. I mean, if it's part of their job and you're not doing part of your job, you're not doing that properly.
Hey, if you don't protect sensitive data, you're going to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
If you start creating cheeseburger definitions for your new ERP system or your new sales system that you're moving to, that's not going to be acceptable. So yes, there have to be consequences. You're going to find the right people to do the right job. But yeah, you can expect pushback because there's always pushback, but there have to be consequences in order so data governance is all about people's behavior. And if people don't behave the way that they need to, there have to be consequences, or we cannot expect their behavior to change.
Absolutely. Very well said. And as Bob mentioned, you can definitely find out more in the Non-Invasive Data Governance book that he wrote and that anybody should have. And we have a great review here from Andrew that in their research of data governance in higher education, and I'm sure not only non-invasive data governance was recommended by many leaders they spoke to as a great starting point for data governance. I highly recommend it.
Andrew. I appreciate that very much.
And there you go, Bob. You just got an order placed in from Gordon.
Well, Amazon will make all the money. I only make like a little bit. So, but I appreciate it. I really do. Everybody, thank you for attending this session. And George and Diana, thank you very much for having me. I am a follower of yours, and will continue to be as long as you have fascinating people like the Data Whisperer and people like myself on. I think it can add value to a lot of people.
Bob, regarding the book, I also have some books published on Amazon, and my suggestion is to make it digital because you're going to earn a little bit more.
Well, it is, and so yeah, so that's my next book may be only digital, but you can get it in PDF version. In fact, the audio book is available on non-invasive data governance too. I just suggest don't listen to that while you drive. I think you can find it in your supermarket next to the Sominex, the sleep aids, to listen to a book on data governance.
No, I don't think so.
Don't do it while you're driving, especially if you're driving a big rig.
So to conclude, for a lot of articles and a wealth of knowledge on everything related to data, go to tdan.com. To find out more about non-invasive data governance, visit kikconsulting.com. Bob is also offering a virtual course on December 14th and 15th.
No, I'm not doing that one anymore. No, I'm offering it as a service to organizations.
All right.
So if you and your organization would like to do a 2-day class on how to build and implement a data governance program, it's very impactful when you have several people from the same organization attending the class versus the virtual and the virtual public courses, which may have 20, 30, 40 people in them. It's a lot harder to focus in on specifically your issues. So I've decided just to provide that as a service offering, and I will be taking that off the KIK Consulting website shortly, maybe by the time that this recording becomes available, but I have a meeting to change that up. But I think it's going to be very solid service offering, which I have done before. And we can really help to tackle some specific issues within a specific organization very effectively that way. But thank you for mentioning that.
Of course.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, Bob. And yes, please follow Bob. Please check out his book, his websites. And as always, join us every Friday morning here on the Good Data Morning Show.
And thank you very much for listening, everyone, for your amazing questions and for your support.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.